Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 2, titled The Activities of Maharaja Agnidra, text number 11. Kim samvritam ruchirayor dvija shringayoste madhye krisho vahasi yatra drishi shritame pankoruna surabhiratma vishana idrig Yenashramam subhagame surabhi karoshi. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. Agnidra then praised Purvachitti's raised breasts. He said, "My dear Brahmana, your waist is very thin, yet with great difficulty you are carefully carrying two horns, to which my eyes have become attracted. What is filling those two beautiful horns? You seem to have spread fragrant red powder upon them, powder that is like the rising morning sun. O most fortunate one, I beg to inquire where you have gotten this fragrant powder, that is perfuming my ashrama, my place of residence." Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Agnidra appreciated Purvachitti's raised breasts. After seeing the girl's breasts, he became almost mad. Nevertheless, he could not recognize whether Purvachitti was a boy or a girl, for as a result of his austerity, he saw no distinction between the two. He therefore addressed her with the word Dvija, O Brahmana. Yet, why should a Dvija, a Brahmana boy, have horns on his chest? Because the boy's waist was thin, Agnidra thought he was carrying the horns with great difficulty, and therefore they must be filled with something very valuable. Otherwise, why would he carry them? When a woman's waist is thin and her breasts are full, she looks very attractive. Agnidra, his eyes attracted, contemplated the heavy breasts on the girl's thin body and imagined how her back must sustain them. Agnidra imagined that her raised breasts were two horns she had covered with cloth so that others would not see the valuables within them. Agnidra, however, was very anxious to see them. Therefore, he requested, "Please uncover them so that I can see what you are carrying. Rest assured that I shall not take it away. If you feel at inconvenience in removing the covering, I can help you. I myself can uncover them to see what valuable things those raised horns contain." He was also surprised to see the red dust of perfumed kunkuma spread over her breasts. Nevertheless, still considering Purvachitti a boy, Agnidra addressed her as Subhaga, most fortunate Muni. The boy must have been fortunate, otherwise, how simply by standing there could he perfume Agnidra's entire ashrama? Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport.
So we are seeing in this chapter the activities of Maharaj Agnidra, how he has come to the forest to perform austerities, and knowing his desire, Lord Brahma has sent an Apsara from the heavenly planets. Her name is Purvachitti. And she is very beautiful, and she has come very close to him and disturbed his meditation. And now he has opened his eyes and gazing carefully at her and being captivated by her beauty, he is speaking these words. He said, "Kim sambrutham ruchirayor dvija shringayoste." As Prabhupada has been describing in these verses, he has become so bewildered, he's not able to see whether it's a woman or a man, a boy or a girl. He's thinking that Purvachitti must be a boy, and so he is addressing her Dvija, O Brahmana. And he is thinking that this Brahmana, Shringayos, he's having two horns on his chest. But those horns are Ruchirayoho. They are very pleasing to look at. And he is thinking and he is asking Kim sambrutam? What have you filled your chest, your breasts with? Kim sambrutam ruchirayor dvija shrungayoste. Those two horns, shrungayoho, two horns that you carry on your chest. What have you, kim sambrutam? What have you filled it with that it is so ruchirayoho, so attractive to me? Madhye krusho vahasi. But your waist, madhya, is referring to the middle of the body, waist. Madhye krusho, krushaha. They are very thin. And they are vahasi. And they are carrying. Vahana, vahisi, vahana. All that means to carry. Vah means to carry. Madhye krusho vahasi. And those thin waist you have are carrying those heavily filled horns on your chest. Madhye krusho vahasi yatra drishihi shritame. And my drishihi, my sight, have become captivated, shritame, by those two horns. Panko arunaha surabhir atma vishana idrik. Pankaha, you seem to have smeared some powder. And the powder is aruna pankaha, like the rising morning sun, reddish. Aruna pankaha surabhir, and it is fragrant. Atma vishana idrik, your two horns that you are carrying, you seem to have spread this reddish powder, fragrant powder on them. Yena ashramam subhaga. Yena ashramam, by that, subhaga, oh fortunate one. Yena ashramam, my ashrama, me, yena ashramam me surabhi karosi. And the whole ashrama has become so fragrant. What kind of a powder have you smeared your breasts with? That is his question, and he is addressing him, Purvachitti, thinking he is a boy, a fortunate boy who has all these wonderful characteristics. So he is asking her, Subhaga, O fortunate one. Kim sambrutham rucherayor dvija shrungayoste. Agnidra then praised Purvachitti's raised breasts. He said, my dear Brahmana, Dvija, your waist is very thin. Madhye krushaha. Yet with great difficulty you are carefully carrying, vahasi, carefully carrying two horns, shrungayoho, to which my eyes, drishihi, have become attracted. Drishihi shrita me drishihi shrita. They have become captivated by them. What is filling? Kim sambrutam. Those two beautiful horns. Kim sambrutam. Ruchirayor shrungayoste. Those beautiful ruchirayo shrungayoste, beautiful horns. You seem to have spread fragrant red powder upon them. Panko arunaha surabhir. Fragrant red powder. Surabhir arunaha pankaha. Powder that is like the rising morning sun. Aruna pankaha. Aruna, rising sun. O most fortunate one, Subhaga, I beg to enquire where you have gotten this fragrant powder that is perfuming my ashrama. Surabhi karosi me ashramam. Yena. From where have you, I beg to enquire, where you have gotten this fragrant powder that's perfuming my ashrama, my place of residence. So we can see here Agnidra completely swept away by the presence of Purva Chitti, and he has become mad after observing her beautiful features. Nunam pramutta kurute vikarmaha yadindriya pritya aprunoti. When the living entity, conditioned soul, indriya pritaya, when the conditioned soul is interested in sense gratification, he becomes mad. Nunam pramatta kurute vikarma. And he performs all kinds of sinful activities. So, in the same way, here, Agnidra has become pramattaha. He has become mad. And looking at the beautiful features of Purva Chitti, he has become so mad. He is not able to understand the reality. He is mistaking her to be a boy. He has become so bewildered. And he is, and we can imagine she is a Apsara. She's very beautiful. And her presence, there is a fragrant smell around her. And that smell has fully his ashramam, surabhi karosi, and her presence has made the whole ashram also very fragrant. And so he becomes completely bewildered. Some years ago, I remember going to one wedding. We were invited, sometimes our rich donors. And it was a very rich family. And beautiful interiors were there. And all the men and women, oh, so beautifully dressed. And very rich and opulent. And practically all the women, I was surprised to notice, I had not seen before such a thing. Most of the women wearing silk saris had a golden belt around. So, maybe rich families and wear such things. And the men also very nice, exquisitely dressed in silk garments. And they were gliding around, meeting, greeting, smiling, exchanging. And so I had gone with one or two devotees, and we were sitting, waiting to be called to bless the couple. That's what we go. That's what we are supposed to do. So we were waiting and looking at, and then I whispered to the devotee, it looks like this is one of those good karma families where Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi doesn't touch them. Looks like that. And he also said, yes, Prabhu. And when you are in that kind of a situation, you are trying to have your spiritual perspective that we have learned from Srila Prabhupada, and looking at all that. And then we greeted and we came away. Just about maybe 2 years, and within 2 years after that marriage, I remember, I got the news that the main man in that family who had invited us, he passed away. So, this material world is organized in such a way. The time factor is such that it gives the conditioned soul a certain experience within a finite time, as if everything is very beautiful. And at that time, we fail to recognize the harsh realities of life. Just like Agnidra. He is seeing the beautiful form of Purva Chitti, and he is so bewildered. What's happening to Agnidra is not new. This was written 5,000 years ago about Agnidra, who must have been many, many thousands of years before that. Even today, the same phenomena continues to happen in every society. Young men and young women become captivated, and they think that, oh, such a wonderful combination if we can come together, and don't realize the reality in its complete form. That is why Krishna says that those who are intelligent see that these pleasures of the material world have a beginning and have an end. Adyantavanta kaunteya nateshu ramate buddhaha. And hence, such wise men do not delight in these temporary, fleeting encounters. But that's the nature of the illusory energy. And when one comes under the influence of the illusory energy, pramattaha, we become mad, we become bewildered. We don't see things in its reality, like it has happened to Agnitra. So these are important questions that acharyas like Srila Prabhupada want us to think about. What is this world all about? Why is this world the way it is? For a while we look at this world, here and there some experiences of pleasure is there, but finally it ends up in miseries and termination of all the good things that we wish to possess. Why does this happen? Parabhava, that's one of the features of the material world. The word parabhava means everything is destined to be finished. Everything is going to get terminated. All the big accomplishments, pleasures of the world, fame, power, gets terminated. I remember going once to a cremation. I had not gone when I'd never had an opportunity to go before I became a devotee. And when I became a devotee, sometimes someone known to us and we go to the cremation. I remember going to that electric crematorium. And here we are all with a heavy heart. We have carried that body there, and some priest came and did some ritual. And for us it's a heavy moment, right? We are bereaved that someone has passed away, and few of us. And there is a man there, he's a regular crematorium operator. For him it's just like many times he does in a day. He's just waiting for all of you, okay, finish all your things. He opens a big cast iron door, and inside I look, it's red with electric coils. And then he raises this platform. It's an metallic thing. Click, click, he bolts it. He's doing it like as if he's, just some nothing. So just some matter. Of course, it is just matter. But for us, it's a human being, an important person, and all that. And then he looked at everybody. Everyone's seen the last look of the body, and then he pushes inside. And then I could see the body going inside, and it's not fully red, but at the same time, it is simmering, it's red. And then he closes the door, and then he turns a big knob. Must be it increases the temperature. And then he looks at everybody. You can come after 1 hour or something. You can collect your pot and go. So this is what happens to us. The body which is so precious for us whether it's a man's body or a woman's body, whatever it is. And then in a few hours he turns off the thing, opens, and then it's all turned into ashes. He'll gather, put it in a pot and give it to you. Your friend, please, your relative, please take it home. This is reality. So for me, having read Srila Prabhupada's books and been a devotee, and then I was going there, and the first time I was looking, peeping, and oh my God, one day I'll be in like that. Oh, how it will be. It's a fact. You see? If you're doing incense, Tulsi Puja or something, if a small cinder, a small little, it falls, we're so careful. Right? One day we'll be surrounded by nichrome wires, red hot, and just turned into ashes in a few minutes. So we don't see these things. This is reality. This is not fairy tale. What the acharyas are teaching us, this is not some faith, this is reality, this is happening, this is going to happen to us. But somehow we keep that aside and we think, oh, so nice, beautiful men and women and richness and aristocracy and opulence and name and fame, and how nice it is to have all that. This is the power of illusory energy. We fail to see the reality. So, we should always be conscious. Brahmana, the word Brahmana means Brahma Janati iti Brahmana. One who knows the supreme truth or the absolute truth. Brahman. Brahman means absolute, not relative. Brahman, Brahma Janati iti Brahmanaha. And that is why it is said, Athato Brahma Jignasa. What is this absolute truth? I am constantly confronted by relative truths. Relative truth means, there are many definitions Prabhupada gives. One definition Prabhupada gives is that time has three features: past, present, and future. Relative truth is truth which is only true in some of the things, not all. Absolute truth is true in all three facets of time, or it is unaffected by time. That is the meaning of absolute truth. And constantly we encounter relative truths in this world. Bodies, temporary, they were not there some years ago, and some years later they will not be there. In between only it is there. So it doesn't exist in all three facets of time. Hence it is called, this body is true. We don't deny it is true, but it is relatively true. Relative truth. It is not absolute truth. So trying to understand what is the absolute truth, that is Brahma Jignasa. So Vedic literatures urge us to understand that absolute truth. And Srimad Bhagavatam, through all of these pastimes, are preparing us to understand the ultimate absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, and what that personality of Godhead does. His pastimes, Krishna and his pastimes. You see, we were singing this song last month. Namo Radhikayai Tvadiya Priyayai Namo Nanta Leelaya Devaya Tubhyam. These are Vedic literatures which are describing that Lord, Devaya Tubhyam, I offer my respects unto you. And that Lord performs Ananta Leelaya. Namo Nanta Leelaya Devaya Tubhyam. Unto the Lord who performs Ananta Leela. Ananta means unending. It doesn't end. It's everlasting. It is eternal pastime. So when we hear, oh, Krishna has eternal pastimes going on in the spiritual world, sometimes it looks, oh, it's a fantasy, or it's too utopian, it's some kind of an imaginary thing. This is how we think, because we think this world is real, and that looks like it is something we are hearing about. It is just like a prisoner's view of the outside world. Say, for instance, there was a murderer, somebody, bad guy, he murdered. But soon after he murdered, there were eyewitnesses, they saw who murdered. There was CCTV, it was captured. And suddenly he was hit by a car, and he fell down, and his head hit, and he had a head injury, and he became, amnesia. He lost memory. But there was evidence, so he was taken to the prison, and he was treated and all that. So slowly he is woken up in the prison, but he is in the prison. Now he is told, no, there is a family of yours. Huh? There's a family? No, there is an outside world. There are, free people. He has no remembrance of the outside world, right? And so for him it's all, oh really, there are people freely moving around. I thought life is everywhere like this only. Right? That's the prisoner's viewpoint. So in the same way, we conditioned souls, we are here, we are only familiar with these things, temporary things which ends after a certain time, and it is after some time it becomes boring, it is sad and not always. So this is the experience we have, but the Vedic literatures are giving us new information about another kind of a world where there is Ananta Leela happen. And our activities here which happen under the influence of Kala, Karma, these are temporary happening. This is not real in that sense, in the sense that it is real because its material energy is also real coming from the Lord, but the impressions we carry here, oh, this is going to be pleasurable, this is going to be with me always, I'm going to be an enjoyer like this, it is illusory. It is not true, it's only for a short while, but we fail to recognize that. But actually that is the real world. Sitting here when we hear about Krishna Leela happening there, oh, something, okay, we are hearing, understanding. But that's the real world. This is not the real world. That world, Ananta Leela happening in the spiritual platform, on the spiritual world, that is real. We have left that. That is why Bhaktivedanta Thakur says, Bhuliya tomare, samsare asiya, pe nana vidha vyatha. I forgot you, Krishna. Bhuliya tomare, samsare asiya. And I came into this world of samsara. Pe nana vidha vyatha. And I am encountering varieties of difficulties and painful situations in this world. Because I have forgotten you and come into this world. Just like this prisoner who has forgotten the world outside, and he is now seeing this world and his world of prison, and he is thinking, this is the world. And when he is told, no, there is a free world, he says, really? Looks like a fantasy, the world there. And people freely move around. Here we cannot freely move around. There they eat different kinds of food in restaurants. Here we only get whatever food we get. Oh, he's not you, he doesn't know that. In the same way, we have that kind of a prisoner's viewpoint of the outside world. In the same way, conditioned souls have this kind of a conditioned soul's viewpoint of what is the spiritual world. Actually, that is the real world. There Ananta Leelaya, the Lord is performing Ananta Leela, and we are His part and parcel. He is welcoming us to come to that world. But here we are stuck with the material pleasures in this world. This is the kind of a perspective that Srila Prabhupada presents to us. When we hear about transcendental pastimes of the Lord, how we should look at it. That is the real world. This is a temporary feature. Now, Srila Prabhupada, because we are all, in today's world, everyone is educated in a scientific temper, right? That's how it is. And hence, Srila Prabhupada helps us to understand how to see these things. Prabhupada gives a rational framework to appreciate transcendence and transcendental activities. Two examples I will cite. Prabhupada gives many, at least two we can think of. One example Prabhupada gives, because to understand these things, to get a realization of the transcendence, one important factor is Shraddha. Ashraddha dhana purusha, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, will not be able to understand this transcendental subject matter. So, when we talk about transcendental reality, we conditioned souls familiar with the relative reality of this material world, trying to understand what is transcendental reality. How do we understand that? Because, so Prabhupada gives us an understanding that how, as conditioned souls, we only have access to the world outside through our senses and through our mind. Our senses draw some input of the world outside because they are like instruments. But Prabhupada points out that our senses are imperfect. And with the imperfect input the senses provide to the mind, we process that information with our mind and intelligence. And the mind and intelligence is also limited. So when you have imperfect senses and you have a limited mind to process that, you cannot understand transcendental reality. To help us understand, Prabhupada gives the example from the Vedic literatures, Kupamunduka Nyaya. The example of a frog who had never seen an ocean. All his life he was living in the well, and all his life his experience was of the well. And suddenly a frog falls in, and the frog was coming from a big ocean, and the frog from the ocean tells this other frog in the well, there is a vast ocean. And then he says, how big is the vast ocean? It is 2 times as big as my well, 5 times, 10 times. You see how the calculation of the conditioned soul is? The conditioned soul is now trying to understand a transcendental reality. That is what is happening. See, this is a beautiful framework Prabhupada gives to help us understand that how we are in the material world, with our senses, with our mind, we can only have an experience of this world. We don't know what is the other world, the transcendental world. Just like a frog came from the ocean and told, in the same way, acharyas have to come from the spiritual world and tell us, that is Ananta Leelaya. That is the world where there is unlimited pastimes happening on the spiritual platform. Now we are here on a material platform with this body, having material relationships, and this is all going to end. Adyanta vanta kaunteya nateshu ramate buddhaha. Hence, enlightened people, Buddha means enlightened one, right? Buddha, enlightened people do not relish this. And another example Prabhupada gives that how such things, wonderful things that are described in the spiritual, in the Vedic literatures, about the spiritual world, Don't think that these are all fantasies. And another example Prabhupada gives is about Narada Muni meeting that Brahmana and meeting that cobbler, about what is Narayana doing. He is threading an elephant through the eye of a needle. You know that story that Prabhupada talked about. And then that Brahmana laughs and he says, not possible. Whereas the cobbler, a simple man sitting under the tree, under a banyan tree, he says, no, I believe that it is possible. He picks up a banyan seed, fruit, and says, look, there are hundreds of seeds inside. If the Lord can put a full banyan tree into the seed, why can't he thread an elephant through the eye of a needle? It's very much possible. So here you see another example Prabhupada is giving for us to comprehend that it's a fact that the entire banyan tree is put in that small seed. And you put that seed in the earth, it turns into a banyan tree in a few years. So it is not impossible. So these are examples of a rational framework that Prabhupada is giving to comprehend and to appreciate transcendence, which otherwise, as conditioned souls, we tend to think that, oh, that is all fantasy. No, that is not fantasy. We are fantasizing here in this material world, thinking that all this is so wonderful, this is so enjoyable, not realizing that we will be swept away by Kala. This body through which we try to enjoy this world will not sustain. It's a temporary feature, just like here we are seeing Agnidra being swept away. He's thinking it is so nice. If I can associate with Purva Chitti, how much enjoyment I can have. This is what the hope of Agnidra. This is the hope of a conditioned soul. This is the hope of all of us in this material world. And so Acharyas are telling us that this is the fleeting world and it's going to be filled with miseries. So let us aspire to understand what is the absolute truth. And that absolute truth, what is the true aspect of that is why Krishna says, Veti tattvataha veti. Very few people know me in truth. Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo veti tattvataha. Who knows me in tattva, in truth. Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaye yatatham api siddhanam kaschin mam veti tattvataha veti. Knowing me in truth. Although Krishna spoke all these things in the Bhagavad Gita, still people did not understand. And that is why it is said, you see in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna told that aham sarvasya prabhavoho mattha sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvitaha. Right? Krishna is saying, those who know my true nature, I am the source of everything and everything has come from me. What do? They are buddhaha. Aham sarvasya prabhavaha mattha sarvam pravartate iti matva. Those who know this, iti matva bhajante mam. They render service unto me. Bhajante mam. Buddha, they are enlightened. Bhava samanvitaha. And they are, how do they bhajante? Bhava samanvitaha bhajante. Bhava samanvitaha. Samanvitaha means filled with, heart filled with what? Bhava samanvitaha. Heart filled with transcendental emotion. They serve me. You see? And this is Krishna has spoken this in the Gita. And in the Bhagavatam also we find so many devotees who are Narada, Shukadev Goswami, who are all bhava samanvitaha, filled with such transcendental emotions. We find those examples. And then Bhagavatam explains Krishna's pastimes. And when explaining Krishna's pastimes, Bhagavatam points out how much the gopis were feeling for Krishna when Krishna left Vrindavan. And whole life They were bhava samanvitaha. If you see all the transcendental attributes that Krishna describes in the Bhagavad Gita, all those transcendental attributes, you see that in the gopis. They were so mad after Krishna. Whole life, they were constantly thinking of Krishna. They were constantly discussing among themselves, Krishna did this, Krishna did that. Bodhayantaha parasparam. See, that is why Chaitanya Charitamrita describes, Krishna thought about it. I have taught them all the Bhagavad Gita principles, all that is there. Still, there is a need for an example to show. And that is why Krishna came as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And taking on the mood of the highest transcendentalist, the highest transcendentalists are the gopis. Taking their mood, he came to this world and he exhibited pastimes. What is it that the highest transcendentalist would do? And we see that in Chaitanya Charitamrita. We see in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leela how he was absorbed. Yugaidam nimishena chakshusha pravrushaitam shunyaidam jagat sarvam govinda virahena me. Every moment is like a 12 years, and constantly tears are flowing from my eyes. This is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exhibited. This is what bhava samanvitaha is. This is the position of a highest transcendentalist, how he lives in this material world when he is here, constantly absorbed in. So an example was needed. An example of the highest ecstasy was needed to show, to tell what the Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavatam was teaching. Hence Krishna himself came as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and he exhibited these things. So we see in Chaitanya's philosophy, all of the things tied together. The philosophy, the experience, and an example in the life of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All of these things we get a complete picture. And this is the real picture. And we must have that kind of a confidence and faith in the teachings of the Acharyas and practice Krishna consciousness. We'll stop here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.